Every child matters. This year, many Canada Day celebrations have been cancelled across the country because of the issues of injustice towards Indigenous people. Discovery of more than 1,000 unmarked children's graves in former residential schools across Canada made many communities mourn. This school system was created to rid Indigenous children of the influence of their own culture. I'm Natalia for the Stories from Canada, and here is my story about gathering of thousands of people near Montreal's Cartier Monument, July 1st, as well as about a convoy in Mohawk community, Kanesatake and Kahnawake, not to celebrate Canada Day, but instead denounce the legacy of residential schools. One of the organizers, Naku said, is hoping that with this event, people can put pressure on the government to take responsibility for inflicting the horror of the residential school system.
You know, as the numbers are rising, there needs to be accountability, right? So if you had the Nuremberg trials, then you should probably do the same thing for the Indigenous people, because those that ran the residential schools are still alive. You know, my colleague went to residential school. He's a couple of years younger than me. He went out to school in Saskatchewan. So those teachers, the administrators, the priests, the nuns, they're all still alive. We need to put these people sort of accountable, you know, and rewrite history. So, because even though it's in the TRCs, it's not necessarily in the history books. Let's put it in the history books. Let's make some positive change, and let's grieve as a community, because it's absolutely devastating. It's overwhelming, the hurt and pain that we feel.
Naku said thinks Indigenous people are still living with intergenerational trauma, so she believes the situation should be turned into something positive. This is why she invited a lot of speakers and elders to come and share their wisdom.
We have to keep moving on. You know, we can't fall into despair and just not get out of bed in the morning. We have to. And we have to for that next generation, for my children, for everyone's children.
In total, over 130 residential schools operated in Canada, and Naku said believes those schools need to be investigated.
But if people even look at the TRCs, you'll see that there's testimony of children that actually had to dig those graves, right? So we know that this has been ongoing, but now we actually have to honor the lives of these children, of finding out where they were, having the church release the names, give them a proper burial, give some peace to that family, and then turn to the government and ask them what they're going to do next.
She said there are groups of people who are having capability to help Indigenous people. And for those who want to support but do not know how, Naku said suggests consulting with the TRC's calls to action.
There are lots and lots of things that can be done. And like I said, actions speak louder than words. If people really want to help, then they'll find a way. You know, reach out to your local organizations that are Indigenous, and support them, because they are doing the work, right? Speak to the people in the churches and ask them if they're going to release the records of these children. Speak to a politician and ask them if they're going to enforce any of these measures that have been put forward. You know, are they going to bring people to trial?
According to her, celebrating Canada Day or not is a personal decision for everyone. However, she believes we need to be informed on all the issues towards Indigenous people.
And then see if you still have the stomach to actually celebrate. Like when Justin Trudeau said that he was going to do the 94, TRC, recommendations, I thought that was funny. I'm like, why don't you just say you're going to do 10, and that way you're not going to fail? So what can you do in your capability, right? And what is the effects of residential school? How come we are the highest population in youth protection, in the jails, right? What can you do if you work in those fields? What can you do in hospitals? You know, are you applying Joyce's principle? You know, are you kind? And when you hear racism with your friends about Indigenous people, are you standing up for us?
Tracy Larocque, a Montrealer, came here as a non-Indigenous person to honor those children who were continually undermined by the government as well as by inaction of settlers. She believes it's time for the changes.
Because reconciliation is not going to happen unless we take action and stand side by side. And we need to put pressure on our government for that to happen. And so I'm honored to be here to say we feel for these communities that need our support, and that's what we're going to do.
Her friend Barbara Whiston believes it is important to be here to condemn oppression and speak out on the tragedies happened to Indigenous people.
Canada is filled with people, settlers who came here specifically to flee from genocide and misery, and to increasingly discover the extent to which our country is built on genocide and misery. It's just not something we're prepared to accept anymore. It's time for our leaders, our secular and our religious leaders, to account for what was done in our name. We don't accept it. The children and their families deserve more respect.
One of the speakers, Kevin Deere, said when the early Europeans got to this traditional land, they didn't see Indigenous people as full human beings.
And as a result of that, we were subjugated. You have to look at the history. And then it was even encoded in the education system that we will kill the Indian to save the man. Why? Why be so afraid of us when all we do is we come here and we connect with the Earth Mother and all of these things that continue to sustain us. Now, we're all wearing orange for the most part, a lot of people. What color is that? Orange. So what we are doing is we are igniting the sacred fire that exists within each and every one of us as a human family. And when we fully understand and encapsulate this idea, you cannot kill a woman, you cannot kill your brother, you cannot rape, you cannot destroy the Mother Earth. You even have to walking soil, which is your body, because this is the only thing that you can ever say that you have dominion over.
An Indigenous woman, Gail Chamberlain, thinks with the recent discovery of the children, every Indigenous people in Canada has been affected. And this day, July 1st, should be a day of reflection.
Canada has a long history of resolutions to do before we can celebrate Canada Day.
I love Canada. I love Canada since the very first day of my immigration. But I'm not only a citizen, I'm an empath, and Canada Day this year has been redefined for me by untold stories about Indigenous people. So today I'm choosing spending July 1st reflecting on what has happened, researching and learning more about the traditional territories and the people who are grieving about every child who never returned home.